You said this place was steps from the water.
We just haven't found the steps yet.
How much did we save?
Enough.
Enough to get lost?
Or you could book a stay with Hilton.
Welcome to your oceanfront room, just steps from the water.
The Hilton sale is on now. Book on Hilton.com or the Hilton app and save up to 20% to get the stay you expected. When you want savings, not surprises, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay.
So good, so good, so good.
Everything you want for summer is at Nordstrom Rack stores now, and up to 60% off. Stock up and save on the brands you love like Vince, Sam Edelman, Frame, and Free People. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to Howie the Podcast. And we promised that we'd ramp up to what some are saying is the biggest game, well, for at least a year. And we've had loads of questions on that topic, as we said in our part one of our Q&A. So, of course, here we are with our part two and very specific questions about, of course, the weekend with Chelsea coming to town and the prospect of qualifying for Europe for the first time since 1973. So with all that taken into account, we'll get straight into it. Because first up, we have Martin Munless. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Chris.
I asked for that, really, didn't I?
No, hello, Chris. I'm delighted to be here as usual. Lots to talk about and lots of excitement to bring to the party.
Well, I know it's still midweek, but oh, bloody hell. Well, I tell you what, these questions will get us up for it, I promise you, because some of them are cracking. But Martin, look, I said in the introduction very quickly that it's the biggest game. People are saying the biggest game since this, since that. Of course, we had some big games last season, which led to this season. But in the grand scheme of things, because some people are also saying, it doesn't matter, how much does it matter? How big is this? Is this the biggest game in, the time you've supported the club? Or is it just, did we have more important games last season?
It's a really hard question to answer definitively because you'd have to argue the playoff final was right up there in terms of importance for the long term of the club. The fact is that we can, on Sunday, achieve something that no other Sunderland team has ever managed, and that's to qualify for Europe through the league. So I think even in that simple context, it's a massive game for the club. And we can argue till the cows come home where it ranks in terms of big games. But the fact that we can achieve something that no Sunderland side's ever achieved before, no Sunderland side has come close to achieving since, obviously, the 73 team qualified for the Cup Winners' Cup by virtue of winning the FA Cup. It's huge. In terms of what that next step could be for this club, this game on Sunday is phenomenally big.
Yeah, absolutely huge. And also with us to get the excitement reaching new levels, bigging them up here, we've got Andrew Smithson. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Chris, mate. Whether I'm excited or not, I think my monotone voice just stays at that same level. So if I'd done that joke Martin did, I don't think anybody would have got it. I'm genuinely excited for this game. And that's what I think the difference is, because other games have been important, but we've had so much to lose. So the playoff final, for example, if that had gone wrong, that would have been a hammer blow. Whereas we're in this fairly unique position for Sunderland in that there's this brilliant prize on offer, and it would be huge in the history of Sunderland. It would be a great achievement. But even if we don't get there, it's not the end of the world. Sunderland have still had a fantastic season, and Sunderland can still look to build in the summer. So I cannot wait, and I will be disappointed if it doesn't happen, but it won't be a case of like, oh, well, that's it, giving up all hope. We can still come away positive. And even if we just finish top 10, hey, what a brilliant way to top off what's been a fantastic season.
You know what's annoying me now, though, sorry, Chris, is that now we're in this position and you're looking at the league table and you're looking at the permutations that would get us into Europe. I'm going, well, that bloody ridiculous sending off of Wolves cost us 2 points. That penalty that Lafayette didn't get for getting pushed in the back at Bournemouth, that's another 2 points. If we got those 4 points, it's pretty much done and dusted already. And I'm kind of going back to bloody refereeing decisions now and missed opportunities that we've had where we haven't turned a draw into a win or a defeat into a draw. And, but what a lovely position to be in when you're going back through those things going, that might cost us Europe. It sounds ridiculous, but that's the situation that we're in.
If you're going to go through things like that, you could actually go back to the opening day of the season and say, if West Ham put a couple of those chances together, we might not have the season we had, and Graham Potter might still be manager of West Ham, and they might be in the top half or something like that. It's just
Graham Potter's going to the World Cup. I wouldn't worry about Graham Potter.
he hasn't done too bad.
He's fine.
Yeah, and actually, Andrew, I was going to say on the subject of your voice, the amount of emails and messages we get in talking about how smooth your voice is on our podcast, Andrew. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Housewife's favourite, isn't he?
Yeah, in some cultures, I think your voice is an aphrodisiac. You know what I mean? And I've heard in some podcasting circles they've dubbed you the Mac and Barry White, Andrew.
What am I going to say to that?
I should be on Radio 4 doing the weather and stuff, the weather report.
I genuinely hate any sort of compliment or anything, but these types of comments, I don't even see them as compliments. I just think people have got to be taking the mick. Oh, well, man, you've got better things to do with your time. It's very nice that people say this type of thing, but honestly, I have a feeling, I have a nasty feeling this is all just a joke. And when I walk down the street, people are laughing behind us saying, have you heard the state of him? What a clip.
Anyway, we've got a Q&A to do, so let's get it on.
Man.
Yeah, but back in the day, I think people would have rang premium rate numbers to listen to your voice, Andrew.
Listen,
I tell you what, Andrew done Club Call. Club Call would still be in business.
You're saying all this, but it's got us nowhere in life because my own wife can't stand the sound of my voice. So it's not done us any favours.
Right. Well, anyway, let's get into this Q&A. And we've got a couple just on this season, actually, that I want to go through before we get into the weekend, just to finish off those that were left over from part one. I'll start with you, Martin, because Josh Hutchinson, we touched on it a little bit in part one, but he said, curious what you think about us having most points from losing positions this season. Is that great powers of recovery, or concerning we evidently very often concede the first goal or goals, or a bit of both? Because it is a strange one. You can look at it both ways, Martin. That fantastic coming back, but should we really go beyond in the first place?
I think this is answered by something you said in the first part of this podcast, Chris, in terms of Labrissa's approach to games, whereas his approach, I think, and I think we can all agree from the evidence that we've seen, certainly this season and last season as well, is that for the first hour, we want to stay in the game. So he wants us to get to 60 minutes and still be in the game. Now, that could be a goal down, it could be level, it could be a goal up. But we don't take risks in that first hour. We're relatively conservative in that first hour. We don't, push the extra man forward. We don't try to necessarily make that pass that might get a goal, but might also put us in a bit of danger as well. So I think the fact that we have come back from losing positions, it'd be interesting, wouldn't it, to have a look at how many losing positions we've been in compared with the clubs. Because the fact that we've come back from them and gained points, there might be other clubs who have a similar amount of losing positions, obviously haven't got quite as many points as us, but, they've got more wins in the games that they've drawn or whatever. So, there's a bit to it where you kind of wonder, is it, I'm not saying it's part of the game plan, but is it something that Libris is happy to live with and almost sacrifice to enable us to get to that position where we're still in the game after 60 minutes and he can then go for it? So it's a funny one to look at. Like, I think I made the point on Monday in the pod that you can look at and go, well, it's actually a concern because we shouldn't be going behind as often. And hopefully next season we will be a little bit more strict defensively and not go behind as often as we have done this season. But I certainly think the fact that we've won so many points from losing positions is far more a testament to the character and ability in the squad than it is a concern to how we approach games and how we play.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got another one in for the general kind of season. And Molly Hannon asks one, Andrew, and it might be one to, I'm racking my brains as I'm thinking about the question. Molly sent the question in to say, let's say we win against Chelsea and get European football. Would that make the Sunderland 2025-26 team the best newly promoted side in Premier League history? He said Wolves 2018-19 would have 3 more points than us if we were to beat Chelsea, but given the league is way harder now, is there a conversation for it? Now, as I'm asking that question, my mind's going back to the early days with Blackburn finishing in the top 3, I think, in their first season in the Premier League. Okay, you're going back, far too long, 30 years or something. I didn't want to say 30 years. It shouldn't be 30 years, but it is 30 years. And dare I say it, I'm sure the Mags had a cracking first season, 4th, I think, off the top of my head. So there's been a few that have come up, and even you could look at Reedy's side finishing 7th. But I don't know, how do you go about answering that question, Andrew?
Basically, if it makes Sunderland look good, I agree. So that's how I'll go about answering that question. I think in all seriousness, though, when you look at the context over the last couple of seasons about how many promoted teams went straight back down, there is an argument to suggest that the gap, is at its widest point ever. So yeah, for a team to come up and do as well as we have is probably one of the best achievements for a promoted side, particularly when you think of, it's not like we ran away with the title last year. Burnley and Leeds fans were at pains to tell us throughout the summer that they'd finished however many points ahead of us. So yeah, go on. Aye, without giving it any thought whatsoever, yes, Sunderland are the best newly promoted team. I've decided, and that's final.
Yeah, but actually, just to bring you in on it, Martin, because I'm sure you're trying to frantically look up other clubs and other years and all that sort of stuff. But I saw noticed Gary Neville also said Daniel Farke as manager of the year, and Labris has been shortlisted. But do you think he's getting the credit he deserves in terms of being shortlisted? And where do you put this achievement, even if we, well, let's say we do or we don't qualify for Europe, where do we put this achievement in the grand scheme of the Premier League history?
I think this season is our greatest achievement in Premier League history by sheer virtue of the quality of the Premier League and as Andrew was saying, the gulf between the Championship and the Premier League that exists now. You look at Peter's side that came up and finished 7th, took the league by storm and did brilliantly. How many players did we add to that side? Maybe 2. We brought in Stefan Schwartz and Steve Bowles, and that was pretty much it from the team that came up.
And we lost pretty much 3 of our ever presents.
And we lost Alan Johnson, Lee Clark, and Mickey Bridges as well, didn't we?
And Andy Melville.
Sorry, and Andy Melville. There's your Melville bingo card, well and truly stamped off there. You couldn't do that now. Like, no team could do that now. It just simply wouldn't happen because the gulf in class is far too great. You don't get those players who previously would have gone to play in the Championship, playing in the Championship anymore. They'll be sat on the bench, on the elongated bench in the Premier League. So I think it's the best achievement that we've had in Premier League history. I don't give a toss how we compare to Wolves in 2018 or anything, to be honest. I'm more concerned with how we compare to ourselves and the achievements that we've got. I think we've done so fantastically well. And it baffles me, but I also like it that when you look at, I saw those things where Gary Neville had nominated Daniel Farke as Manager of the Year, and I think both Neville and Carragher said Bournemouth were the biggest overachievers of the year in the Premier League. Now, how on earth does anybody come to that consensus? Like, that is nonsensical. But I'm really glad that we're flying under the radar here, because I actually don't want people paying too much attention to us. I don't want people sniffing around Register Briss. I don't want people looking at our players. I just want us to keep ticking along and doing our thing and taking people by surprise, because the more that we are underestimated, the more we'll be able to achieve things like we have done so far this season, and we'll achieve great next season. So on one hand, you want the club to be talked about, you want accolades and all that sort of stuff. I'm kind of happy for us not to get them. I think, how can you... Well, the FA Cup is the only reason why anybody could say Daniel Farke has been a better manager in the Premier League this year, or a better Premier League manager this year. Leeds had however many, 20 zillion points, I believe it was, that were ahead of us last season. So they obviously had a far better team. They've spent similar amounts of money, and they haven't been above us all season. So how has he done a better job than Lebris has? It doesn't stand up.
Well, can I just ask you a question on this, Martin? That, do you think this has something to do with the order of how things have happened, in terms of Leeds having a pretty rotten first half of the season and being in the mess, and then supposedly Daniel Farke getting them out of it, and Regis Lebris having a fantastic first half of the season, losing only 4 of the first 20 games and having us flying high in the league, and then having a poor second half of the season? So it's that element of, and people talk about Player of the Season awards, where everything that's fresh at that time when people are doing the voting swings people's votes one way or the other. Do you think that's part of it, that because we were more impressive in the first half and everyone's forgotten about that Leeds are now getting more credit because they've been good in the second half of the season?
Oh, look, quite possibly. There's always that recency bias, isn't it? It's like when they used to do the Player of the Season vote in February. Whoever was going through the purple patch in February was given the Player of the Season vote, and then come May, when the form fizzled out, why the hell's he got Player of the Year? That's because we did the vote in February and everybody was pissed. But you have got that recency bias, absolutely, and that could play a part. But I think overall, you would have to really struggle to make an exceptionally strong case for Lebris not to be in that conversation for Manager of the Year this season. I think you look at the job Emery's done at Aston Villa, fantastic. I think, honestly, he's the only one comparable to Lebris, and I would probably chuck Keith Andrews at Brentford in there as well, because I think the three of them defied expectations and they've overachieved against the expectation that was there at the start of the season. Going back to my point, or our point earlier about conceding the first goal, I've just found a list of the clubs that have conceded the first goal the most and the points gained from it. Now, only Wolves, Burnley, and Forest have conceded first more than we have, right? But, Forest have conceded first 24 times. They've won 3, drawn 5, and lost 16 out of those times. We've conceded first 21 times, apparently, won 6, drawn 3, lost 12. But you go at the other end of it, Newcastle, who I think we're above Newcastle in the league. I can't remember. I think we are. They've conceded the first goal 10 times.
Let me just check, Martin. Let me just check.
Can you just confirm
yes,
that?
I can
for me,
confirm
please?
we are.
Oh,
Yeah, I can confirm
excellent.
we are. Yeah.
So Newcastle have conceded the first goal 10 times in games this season. Arsenal have conceded the first goal 9 times. So there isn't a great science to this. I think the end result and the outcome of games is far more about what happens over the whole 90 minutes rather than conceding one. And I think this is maybe something that we as fans have been conditioned against, because there was a period of time, wasn't there, where you knew if we conceded the first goal, we were not going to come back from that. We went through a few seasons and if we concede first, that's it, we're done. And I kind of wonder whether, with Labryssa's help, we've shaken that off completely as a notion. Because just because you concede one, it takes a second to score a goal, as Brian Clough used to say. Just because you concede one, it doesn't mean you can't go on and win 3-1 like we did on Sunday, or 4-1 or 2-1. It's part of the game. So while we don't want to be conceding goals regularly and conceding the first goal regularly, we've proven this season, and hopefully as a fan base, we've kind of got over that that thing that we had previously, where if we concede, we're screwed. That actually, if concede, all right, it's a bit of a setback, but we can more than go on and win this game. And the fact that we've done so often, picked up points so often from those positions, is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there was a time in League One where, regardless of where the first goal was scored, I was going to my phone and checking the odds on 1-1, because basically that's guaranteed how it would end up. But anyway, I think that's a good place to end us for part 1 of part 2 Q&A, because I promise we will get into that Chelsea game after the break. So we'll be back very soon.
Bonjour, compadre. It's the
Priceline Negotiator.
How do I negotiate so many great travel deals? My greatest gadget, the Priceline app. It's got hotel deals, flight deals, rental car deals, all of those deals in a bundle. Deals, game day deals, concert trip deals. No one deals more deals than Priceline. Hold your horses, there's more. The app lets you filter hotels by neighborhood, vibe, star level, and amenities like pools and spas and beachfronts and... Wait, I'm not done. Stop cutting me off.
Priceline.
One crunchy bite of a Hershey's cookies and cream bar, and I'm taken right back to college move-in day. I was a little overwhelmed by the newness of it all. Boxes were everywhere. I needed a break from unpacking. But just as I was able to take a breath and open my Hershey's cookies and cream bar, my new roommate Rachel walked in. I offered her a piece, but she said no. Then after a beat, she said, "Actually, those are my favorite ones." We laughed. The ice was broken, and we've been friends ever since.
Hershey's. It's your happy place.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
And welcome back to How We're the Podcast. And as I promised, we'll get straight into the Chelsea game ahead of the weekend. And I'll start with you, Andrew, because I didn't ask you this question earlier on. And we've gotten this question from Joe Braun, who says, my sister and brother-in-law are coming from out of town. They hate soccer, and in brackets, he's put football. So well done, Joe. How do I sneak away to watch the Chelsea game? And so he's trying to sneak away to watch the game. But I want to ask you, Andrew, the question I asked Martin at the beginning. looking back on big games, the playoff final, where do you put this one? How big do you think this is for the football club? Do you think, well, that it doesn't really make a difference, or where do you put this one?
I do have it high up there, and there's lots of circumstances around it which are going to make it a massive day. I mean, it's a bank holiday weekend. You've got the Radio 1 event happening, so all eyes are going
The
to.
sun's going to be out.
Well, there you go. All eyes are going to be out. I mean, that's how you manage to drop a shoulder. You just take your sister and brother-in-law to a busy pub and say, "Oh, you find a seat. I'll go and get the drinks." Just nash off to the game and then run back at full time and say, "Wait, flipping heck, did you see how long that queue was at the bar?" So there you go. That's your problem sorted there, Joe. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of positivity around the city, and everyone's going to be looking forward to it, hopefully. And I think this could end up being a game that gets talked about for years. It's lovely to go into it knowing that there's very little jeopardy. We can enjoy it, whatever happens, and still go away with this feeling of job well done. There is, though, that potential of finishing above our neighbours, of finishing in the top 10, of qualifying for Europe. Any of those, if you'd been offered at the start of the season, people would have gladly accepted it. So yeah, it's a big game. People are going to be well up for it. It's nice that there won't be the tension as such, because whatever we achieve will be a bonus. And I think it's quite apt that it's Chelsea. I remember Kelvin on and on this week one time telling us the story about in '63 when we were playing them at Roker Park and they nicked a win and it meant we didn't get promoted. But since then, certainly in my lifetime, some of the best ever games at the Stadium of Light have been against Chelsea. Some of our best ever Premier League performances, including the Stadium, Roker Park and Stamford Bridge, they've been against Chelsea. So we've got form for producing good things against them. And yeah, if it happens, this will be huge, and it'll be something. Maybe it won't be something you tell your grandkids about, but over the next couple of years, it would be nice to look back on and just say, aye, those 1-1 draws in League One were crap, but bloody hell, we've come back from it all the better. So yeah.
Well, you had me thinking back of memories of Kevin Ball flying from the halfway line to score that diving header at Roker Park.
Yeah.
Against Chelsea. But just on that theme, Martin, Steve Richards asks, because again, going back to an On This Day I've written recently, I wrote one about when we went down at Selhurst Park that season. Actually, we're talking about Kevin Bull's diving header, but the last season at Roker Park, and I was at Selhurst Park, and everyone was biting their nails and having the old transistor radios listening in Coventry, doing the 15 minutes late thing and all of that. And Steve Richards asked, how nice a change is it to have a high-stakes, low-pressure final game? Because we've been saying for a couple of weeks, Martin, that people should just enjoy it, because this never happens, does it?
No, it doesn't. And every high-reward game that we've had, as far as I can really remember, has been high risk as well, hasn't it? Like, if you win, it's going to be brilliant. If we lose, it's going to be catastrophic and it's going to be the end of the world. And I remember people asking me if somebody had died for a few days after one game, because I was just in such a zombie-like state. I couldn't communicate. I couldn't talk. This was miserable. So we haven't got that, have we? We haven't got that downside.
Can you remember Kevin Ball's reaction when he described it on Premier Passions after getting relegated at Selhurst Park, where he said he basically just drank for 2 days and didn't tell anybody, didn't talk to anybody, and just slumped in the corner and all of that sort of stuff. But it's not that, is it? It's not that high risk.
No, like, I remember the situation I was talking about. I remember it was after the Charlton defeat at Wembley. I remember for a week afterwards, I was just devastated because we deserved to win. We deserved to go up, and the manner in which we got beat was heart wrenching. On Sunday, we've got all of the upside without having any of the downside, because it would be fantastic to achieve the European spot that's on offer. And look, I'm sure if we don't do it, there will be some disappointment. We'll be disappointed. We've got to this point where it's a possibility. Now we'll be a little bit disappointed if we don't achieve it. But we've achieved so much, exceed expectations, exceed our own expectations throughout the course of the season. So I think I described it as potentially being a massive cherry on an already massive cake. If we don't get the massive cherry, we've still got the massive cake. And it's not often you have a game like that. So it's one that you can kind of truly enjoy. It can be a celebration, can't it? What has gone on in the season, what has been achieved, with that little tantalizing extra little bit riding on it. Because again, this has never happened. And for the first part of the club's history, this wasn't a possibility. The early teams would have qualified for Europe and be in the Champions League if those competitions existed. But since the European competitions have come into play, we have never, ever, ever been in this position of qualifying for them, unless you count Peter Reid deciding not to take part in the Intertoto Cup, which I still think was a bad decision, by the way. So you've got this hugely tantalising prospect on Sunday, where it really is win in capital letters and win in lowercase, because either way, we can feel proud and enjoy the day.
Yeah. The Intertoto Cup reminds me of two things. It's Scott Parker holding up his certificate, looking really pleased. And the other one is Ian Sampson playing for Spurs.
Yeah, bizarre, isn't it?
And those are the only two things I remember from the Intertoto Cup. But going into the game specifically, Andrew, we've got a couple of questions along the same lines, and this is about kind of atmosphere and what it's going to be like. And we've talked about the things going on in Sunderland, Andrew, and the fact that the weather's forecast to be fantastic. They've got a couple that I'm going to read out on similar lines. John Harrison sent in, he said, getting into Europe would be a massive achievement. The soul needs to be rocking on Sunday like it was for the West Ham game. No excuses, plenty of time for beers beforehand, then sing your hearts out for the lads. Elliot always says as well, are we doing anything like the playoff semis against Coventry where we lined the bus with flares, etc.? It would be a class way to get the players up and ready for the match. Granite and Nordy haven't came to a promoted club to achieve nothing. And so both questions based around the atmosphere and getting it up. Does it deserve that build up? Do you think that might end up happening?
One for Barry White, that might, isn't it? Questions about getting it up.
Well, just stick half an hour of Andrew on and you sort
of. Right. Yeah, I'm sure people are planning on getting it up this weekend, and good luck to them.
Well, we'll get baby boom in 9 months' time, is it? After this weekend,
lots of baby granites enrolling in nursery in 4 years' time.
Little Nordy, our little Nordies. That's the Sunderland plan. Right, what we on about? I think the atmosphere will be absolutely bouncing. It'll be brilliant, and I hope afterwards, people remember this mood, and I hope if we don't achieve what we want, people don't then suddenly start like writing the season off or forgetting what we've done, because these players do deserve our appreciation. I would love it if on the journey, the coach journey to the ground, if they did a repeat of the Coventry build up where there's flares and people banging on the side of the not banging on the side of the bus, knocking the side of the bus with their knocking the side of the bus with their hands and that, getting the mood going, getting the mood going. Sorry, sorry, lads. No, it would be brilliant.
Whatever floats your boat.
Well, aye. Listen, if that gets you up for the weekend, so be it. Football's meant to be fun, and some people might be looking at Sunderland fans saying, "Oh, it's pathetic that they're getting excited about the possibility of qualifying for Europe." But I don't care what other people think. We've had a difficult few years. Supporting Sunderland's very rarely been about the glory. So this is an occasion when we can be proud and we can, have something to think about. Any discussions about is being in Europe a good thing for us, that can wait until the summer. We can talk about how we tackle that down the line. Let's just all get behind this. Let's dream and back the lads, give them our support and say thanks for what's been not just a brilliant season, but a brilliant 12 months. Isn't the game the first anniversary of the Sheffield United final, I think?
Yes. I
Yeah.
believe so.
Yeah.
So, we have been through the mill and we now have deserved our time of just enjoying ourselves. And if you enjoy yourself by banging on the bus, fair play to you.
This with the argument that some people have made, and I've read a few times, that we shouldn't want to qualify for Europe. We shouldn't do that. It's not going to be good for us. The same people were saying that about going up last season, and it's just like you've got to take the opportunities when they're there. And we will, as a club, we saw what they did last summer with the transfer business. If we are in Europe, they'll do something slightly different to what they're going to do if we're not in Europe during the summer. I've seen people go, and I think Sam Allardyce said it, if Sunderland qualify for Europe, they'll get relegated next season. I read the other day, one club in the last 25 years in English football who's played in Europe has got relegated. So, that just blows that. You're talking about, what, 200 clubs?
Ipswich?
It might have been, I think it was.
Ipswich Town.
But it's only happened once in the last 25 years. So this notion of qualifying for Europe equals relegation, it's nonsense. It doesn't stand up statistically. So, if the opportunity comes, we should absolutely embrace it with both arms because it'd be fantastic.
On that point, Martin, is it any more of a slog than the Championship? Maybe the travel's a bit worse, but in terms of numbers of games, we've got plenty of players in the squad who remember how to get through 2 games a week. So, yeah.
But also, the quality of the opposition is not going to be the same as Premier League level opposition. And you have a much bigger squad to play about with.
We have got some specific questions on Europe that we're going to come on to, so we'll come back round to that. But just going back to specifically the Chelsea game, Martin, because I've had a question from Elliot, and he actually asks, how worried should we be about the Alonso appointment? He said, obviously, it was a Leverkusen with Granit and Nordi, so will he be interested in them? And he said Chelsea lack experience with, potentially looking at Xhaka. And he said Gusto is shite at right back. So maybe they're interested in Michele. But just overall, Martin, that appointment at Alonso might, prick a few ears up from the Chelsea players thinking, actually, this guy's serious. What he did at Leverkusen, he was at Real Madrid. And he's going to come in and I need to look the part.
Look, quite possibly, the things I've read about Chelsea suggest that there's a really toxic culture among the players there, and it's not a good environment to work in. So I think there's an awful lot of change that Alonso will have to make at Chelsea over this summer to get them into a team that is willing to compete or ready to compete in the Premier League and seriously compete in the Premier League. I think you've got an aspect of it in terms of the players wanting to impress Alonso, and I'm sure some of them will. There'll also be a whole load of others who do not want to risk their participation in the World Cup. There's so many players at Chelsea who are going to be in World Cup squads, and they will only be thinking about being fit for the World Cup now. They can't do anything else in the league. So, and a lot of them will not know whether they are going to be at Chelsea next season to start with. So I think there is a bit of that. It will add a different dimension to some of their mentalities, but I firmly believe a lot of them are going to be focusing on the World Cup. The question about Mukiele and Xhaka with the Leverkusen connection with Alonso, I hadn't considered that before. It's an interesting point. And, I guess if you were Alonso going in, knowing what Xhaka can do, the mentality of him, and the mentality we've seen from Nordi this season, so I think he's equally been very impressive in that regard. Like, you wouldn't be surprised if there was interest there, would you? You wouldn't be surprised if he thought, wow, wouldn't mind those two in my ranks, especially when you're a new manager coming in and needing to change culture, which he's going to need to do, and to get two of your own people in there to lead the dressing room. You can see it. It's not implausible. So I think, that's another strong reason for us, wanting to qualify for Europe, because it gives us extra pull in ensuring that the players that we want to keep the club, we can keep the club, and the players that we want to attract to the club, we're even more attractive than we were previously. So it hopefully adds another incentive for us to win that game on Sunday.
Yeah, it is interesting, especially because I might slightly disagree, but Gusto had looked all right when the few occasions when I've seen him play. He might have got worse since then, but he looked all right on a couple of occasions. But just to get into the conversation of Europe, Andrew, and we started on it before, but we've had a couple of similar questions from Ethan and Mangla Ram. Ethan asks, would you, and is getting a little bit greedy when we're talking about preferences. Would you prefer Europa League or Conference League? That's Ethan's question. And Mangla Ram said, how much different do all the permutations of this weekend mean to the summer? How different is Europa League versus Conference League versus no European qualification? Could the difference between 9th and 12th matter? So a couple of questions on potentially trying to choose what we want, which might be nice, but we'll get what we're given, I think. But a couple of questions on what we might prefer in terms of European qualification.
Fair question. And hey, we could beat Chelsea and other results don't go our way and we don't get Europe. So
yeah,
nothing's a guarantee. A couple of people are concerned about the potential for a heavy schedule next season. I think the Conference League, I think you play 2 fewer games in the group stage, or certainly that was the format this season. So, if that's a factor for people, you could say that the Conference League might be a better option for us. I would just be happy with any European qualification. I think it's a case of beggars can't be choosers. We went into this season having a squad of players who had very little in the way of Premier League experience. I think was it Xhaka and Traore were our 2 most experienced players in terms of Premier League outings, and then maybe Adingra. Patrick Roberts might have had a couple. And yet we've ended this season having taken to the Premier League by, like a duck to water. Going into Europe, bizarrely, we've probably got more experience across the likes of Gertrude, Mukiele, Xhaka, etc., etc. So that wouldn't daunt me. I think we would have enough know-how amongst the group to deal with it. What it does this in terms of the summer, I don't think it alters much in the way of incomings. Martin said on the previous episode, we could probably pick our strongest 8 or 9, and it's just those positions on the wings that we need to strengthen. I think Sunderland will be looking to do that regardless of being in Europe. It would be foolish not to see, can we strengthen in those areas? If we are in Europe and we've got extra fixtures to play, I think what will happen is it maybe changes the outlook for some of the fringe players. Mayenda, for example. Mayenda might have been thinking, I need to get myself a loan. I want to go somewhere else. Well, suddenly, for argument's sake, if there's 8 more games in the first half of the year for him to potentially get minutes in, does he say, oh, well, I'd rather stay put? You know, there'll be players in that boat where I think their decision-making is impacted by it. So there'll be lots of decisions to be made in the summer, but again, it's all from a positive viewpoint. None of these decisions are from like, oh, I'm desperate to get out of here, Sunderland are going nowhere. It's all with a view to Sunderland are doing well and can I be part of it?
Well, actually, you've got the ball rolling on our next set of questions, which I'll put to Martin, because Alan Davis, Lad of Light, and Ryan Evans have sent us similar things in. Alan Davis asks, if we make it to Europe, how many quality signings do you think we need to compete on both fronts? I would say at least 4. Lad of Light says, I know talking about Europe is a taboo. So a taboo subject we've focused on completely pretty much in the second half of this podcast. So he said he apologises, so do we. He says, my question is, if we do make it into the European tournament, do you think the club will invest more money to deepen the squad like last summer, or will they keep with the initial 3 or 4 new incomings framework? And again, Ryan Evans on a similar theme. He said, it's insane to be sitting here talking about Europe. If we win versus Chelsea, we have a good chance given who Brentford and Brighton are playing. Does getting into Europe change possible outgoings like Isidore or Gertruda, or more attract new players? And he references Haji Musa as a potential signing. So a lot of people saying that, do you think, Martin, they've got 2 lists? One if we qualify for Europe, one if we don't? Or do you think there's the odd player chucked on there who might be just attracted by European football? How do you think they're thinking?
Look, I think they've probably got one list. The extent to which they go into that list and down that list will maybe be dependent on whether we're in Europe or not. I think we'll have our list of targets. I don't think we'll have a separate list of people. Or we'll get that player if we qualify for Europe. That player might be more interested if we qualify for Europe.
Sorry, Martin. I'm just going to throw in there. There was a quote. David Moyes was talking about potentially Everton qualifying for Europe last week, and he referenced how many players turned them down last summer because they weren't in Europe.
Right? So they'll be on Everton's list, right? But they've got a better chance of getting them if they're in Europe, right? So we'll have our list of players. We'll have more chance of getting them, the ones that we want, if we are in Europe. So we might not have to go as far down the list if we're not in Europe and all that sort of stuff. But I think we will go deeper into that list and get more players in if we are in Europe. And then you look at the squad, because our squad is strong, but you look through it, right, and you've got the likes of Dennis Serkin. Chances are he'll move on in summer. Simon Moore's still there as third choice keeper. Will we want backup to Roofs if Roofs stays? Quite possibly. Is Elborg ready? If Roofs got a serious injury, is he ready to be relied upon? I wouldn't like to do so. So there'll be movement probably in goalkeepers. Can we keep Gertruda? Maybe Luke O'Neill, we talked about him in the first episode. Will he want to go out and play football? There's a strong possibility of that. Reynaldo's not a youngster. Will we want to bring a player obviously who brought in Masuaku, didn't we, at the start of the season, to challenge Reynaldo for that left-back spot? He couldn't get past him. Will we look to strengthen that, especially if Serkin's going? There's a possibility there. Trey Hume's an interesting one for me. He's been linked with a £30 million move somewhere. And, as much as I like Trey Hume, if somebody's coming along offering 30 million from him, you're going to be tempted to take it, aren't you? You've got question marks that Siddiqui's been linked away. Will he go? If so, who do you replace him with? Diarra's got an awful lot of potential, but are the club willing to stick with him for another season and give him more of an opportunity because he's pretty much unproven? you've had the likes of Alexic on the bench since he came back from his loan in January, haven't you? We've talked last one about the wing positions which do need strengthening. You've got Talby, who hasn't really cemented his place in there, but has got huge potential. Mayenda, he'll be wanting to play football somewhere. If we qualify for Europe, he's probably got a good chance of getting a number of games in Europe for us. What happens with Romain Mundle? What happens with Wilson Isidore? Traore's contract's up. See, you've got so many question marks over different players. And then you've got this core that you want to keep, but the fact that we want to keep them, other clubs are naturally going to be interested in them because they're our best players. So we've got that aspect to it. So it's so hard to actually sort of decipher and determine what's going to happen in the summer. And a lot of it will just depend on who wants to stay. If we're in Europe, gives us the option of getting better players from that list that we'll have. And you kind of almost see where you end up when all's said and done, don't you? But I think Lebris said a few weeks ago he'd like to bring in 3 or 4 players to go into the first team. I think that's a very conservative way of looking at what'll happen in the summer, because I suspect there'll be at least double that, if not more.
Another interesting summer ahead. Again, I think this is the last one on Europe, Andrew, bit of a hypothetical from Rob Lowe. If, and a big if in capitals and bold and underlined and all that, if we get into Europe, do you think the club would add the home games to our season ticket or have to pay for them separately? I think it's a bit of wishful thinking on Rob's part, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the practicalities of it, the season tickets have already gone out and direct debit payments have started. So I think to now bolt on another batch of games would be just purely processing it would be difficult. And then there's people not wanting to go, people only wanting to go to certain games. Midweek matches might be difficult if you've got family commitments or what have you. I do like how this idea that this time next week, if we haven't qualified for Europe, we're not going to mention it once at all. We're just nobody's going to mention Europe over the summer. Where you going on holiday? Oh, staying local.
Asia.
Yeah, yeah. But at the moment, there's all of these fun little conversations we can have and all these fun questions about, what will happen about tickets? And, there's just so many things that we've never experienced as a fan base, or certainly the majority of us haven't experienced. That's another factor in terms of what competition you would like to see Sunderland qualify for. I think generally the Europa League has a better known standard of clubs, so there might be some more attractive games there. But if we do make it, I hope it's affordable and people that want to go to games can go. It would be a bit odd if we were all excited about the prospect of Europe and then we get there and the games come along, nobody actually goes to the games. That would seem a little bit peculiar. But as to whether it's going on to season tickets, that might be a little bit of a stretch. Chuffed a bit if I'd be chuffed a bit if they said, as a thanks for your loyalty over the last few years, all games in Europe are free if you've bought a ticket in the last however many months.
See, it might not go that far, but I actually think this is actually not as daft as it sounds, because I've long not understood why they haven't given an option at the start of the season, say, pay an extra 25 quid, for example, and you get all home cup games, including your season ticket. You might get one, you might get no games, you might get 5. That's a risk that you take. But you put the money down as part of your season ticket, or just put the price up and just say 25 quid more, you get all the cup home games. Because we know that match day revenue from ticket sales is minimal in the grand scheme of things for the club. And they're far better off having a full ground than having a half empty ground for cup games. We've seen cup games at the Stadium of Light over the past few years, haven't we? where there's 20,000 in, 15,000 in. It's no good for the players. It's no good for the fans who go. And it just seems nonsensical to me. We've got this locked-in thing in English football that a season ticket just gets you into league games. Why? The admin alone of organising the cup tickets, selling the cup tickets, and all that sort of stuff, surely that cost of doing that would surely be outweighed by the benefit of bringing people into the ground as part of your season ticket. You've got merchandise sales, you've got food and beverage sales, all that sort of stuff. I just think it's one of these things that we just do because it's always been done like that. And nobody's ever gone, actually, I'll just include them. Because we're far better off losing that 30 grand of revenue from a midweek cup game and having everybody there and selling bovrils and selling pints and selling pies and all that sort of stuff, selling programs. That money will get recouped instantly through product sales. And it's just one of those things I think because it's always been done like that, we've never thought about, is that actually the sensible thing to do? I could understand it when match day revenue was the key revenue stream for a club, but that's in the 70s and 80s. It's not now, and I just don't understand it.
Martin, I love your thinking, and it would be brilliant if fans it was made easier for fans to come to games. My fear is that the authorities would say, no, you can't do that because you've got to give a percentage to the opposition clubs. And unfortunately,
percentage of tickets of revenue?
I think in cup games, you've got to give a percentage to the visiting side. Now, that's a conversation about, well, we need to have conversations and can we make fans at the centre of decisions we make, but that'll be what they hide behind, I suspect.
But that's one of those things that could be so easily resolved, couldn't it?
Oh, it should be. It should be. I agree with you. I just think people will use that as an excuse to not implement, not think outside the box and not come up with this type of package that suits the fans.
Oh, well, when I'm appointed new CEO, I'll do that. Oh, I've let the cat out of the bag, haven't I? Shit. I'm not allowed to say that, yeah?
Well, all this talk of Europe, I feel like we need to kick off a referendum to decide whether we need to qualify for Europe or not. But I'm not sure that's it's never been a good idea in the past, so I'm not quite sure. But yeah, anyway, actually, just one question I did want to ask, and I'm going to stick it to you, Andrew, and I'll let you join in, Martin, because we're all of a similar vintage. And I just wanted to ask you about the European competitions, and I'll start off with you, Andrew. About obviously we've got the Champions League that's been set in, since the early '90s when it changed from the original European Cup, of course. But I was always a fan of the UEFA Cup, always a fan of the Cup Winners' Cup. It had that knockout side to it as well. That sides were seeded, but it was basically a knockout competition. And the Cup Winners' Cup was just I remember Man United beating Barcelona in the final in the early '90s. I always liked that. And do you think the new structure in terms of the Europa League and the Conference League, do you think that's diluted European competition below the Champions League, or do you think it's steadily grown?
That's a really good question, and I don't know the answer, partially because I don't pay enough attention to European football because we're never in it. I think it perhaps...
I remember, sorry, Andrew, I remember being a kid, loving the midweek European UEFA Cup games, Cup Winners' Cup. I remember Liverpool playing the UEFA Cup. I remember, like I said, Man United playing in the Cup Winners' Cup. Maybe it was just my age at the time, of course. So I've got those tinted glasses on, but
I think the fact that it was knockout football gave it that extra edge. Whereas if you reach the group stage now, even with the newer formats, you could potentially get dead rubber games, and losing one match might not be the end of the world because you can still progress. I don't like the idea of you can be in a group or in a league table but you've not played every team in that league table. That just feels a bit peculiar to me. So, yeah, maybe it has been watered down ever so slightly, and you get the feeling that they're more bothered about guaranteeing numbers of games than they are the competitive merit of these tournaments. But ask me that one again if we do qualify for Europe.
Yeah, I mean, look, absolutely. We'd all absolutely love it. It'll be absolutely fantastic. And you saw the impact it had on West Ham, Martin. But there was that debate when West Ham won it, wasn't it? Saying, where does the Conference League rank? Because, well, for a start, it's so new. It hasn't really got any history, has it?
Well, it hasn't. I think it gives us the best. It gives us the best chance of winning a European competition. As ridiculous as that sentence sounds in my head while I say it.
Well, it was the Anglo-Italian when I was young. That was our best chance of.
Very true. Yeah. I think. Look, I think the European competitions, as they are devised and formatted now, are purely money driven. They're not sport driven. They're money driven to make money for UEFA, and that's the kind of be all and end all of it. And when you go back to, I remember that game that you talked about, the Manchester United Barcelona Winners' Cup final when Mark Hughes scored the goal to win it against his former club. You had all of this hype around it, but there's a number of factors to feed into that. One's outrage, because that was a time where you're watching football all the time, you're soaking everything up, you're reading about it all the time, blah blah. That was the only match that was on TV that week. So you were going to sit down and watch it. It was on free-to-air TV. So everyone could watch it. Everyone was talking about it the next day because everybody watched it. Because, people who were listening to this might not believe it, but we had 4 channels and you had to watch what was on. So the football was on. It was brilliant to watch. Also, English clubs have only just been allowed back into Europe. So there was a lot of hype around that, a lot of novelty factor because of the ban after Heysel. So that's period from the early 90s all the way up to Manchester United winning that cup final against Bayern Munich at Nou Camp. I think that was a kind of a golden age for English clubs in Europe because there wasn't loads of clubs in it. The best clubs were in it. You were playing against the best teams. The games were great every week. Obviously, the Champions League had come into it by then, but there was still high quality games, knockout games more often than not. I don't like competitions. I don't like cup competitions that have a league format in them. I just think it is fixtures for the sake of fixtures, football for the sake of football. UEFA trying to get more money for the sake of UEFA getting more money. So I'd love to qualify for Europe. Is the answer to the question? Was that the question? I don't know. But look, it's however I enjoy other clubs playing in it, I will really enjoy us playing in it if and when that time comes.
I think that's a perfect place to sum up where we are on the position of qualifying for Europe. And just a quick apology to Michael Hammond, John and David Story, because they've sent in questions based around the transfers in the summer, which we will keep for after the Chelsea game when we start concentrating on the summer. Apologies as well to Jamie Armstrong as well, who sent in a question that we can discuss at length about dispensing liquids from 4 fingers and a thumb on one hand. So we'll come back to that another day. But it just leaves me to say, Martin, thank you very much for your time, mate. Thank you for your measured answers, as always, pal.
That's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Chris.
And Andrew, thanks again for your time. Thanks again for your smooth voice. That I'm sure has made everybody feel better out there.
Well, I better not talk about dispensing liquids from 4 fingers in just in case. But some great questions, some great points raised by yourself and Martin. Good fun, and let's just all enjoy this week. It's a good time to be a Sunderland fan right now.
I had worried we were slowly turning into a carry-on film, but I needn't worry about that. But anyway, thanks again, gents, and thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, we'll have loads more on the Roker Report website this week as we ramp up to the Chelsea game. And of course, we'll have pods every single day on How We're the Podcast. So look out for all of that. But from us, it's bye for now.